Potts said, "Hey, I can hook you up with Mike Mignola and RMs. These guys are buddies of mine. They live out there. They can help you out." And so he kind of just thrust me upon Mike Mignola. And so a couple months maybe, and I flew out to Berkeley and I crashed on Mike Mignola's couch for about 4 days. He didn't know who the hell I was. It was my editor, Carl Potts, who didn't know me that well either. So it was a pretty big leap of faith and kind of speaks to the comic book community. But basically, I crashed on Mike Mignola's couch. He was working on Cosmic Odyssey for DC at the time. And it was really awesome. I was just a huge Mike Mignola fan, and so I was a complete fanboy, I'm sure. Just kind of staring and watching him eat his cereal in the morning or whatever he was doing. I can't even remember. But I remember he had all these like photocopies, of pages he worked on. And what's interesting about it is that Mike, he has very first appearance, sort of very simple style, but there's so much nuance to it. And at the end of the day, he's a genius. Let's move this back up. So the trick to Hellboy for me is there's a fair degree of exaggeration in the figure, the structure, and that's really based on Mike Mignola's style. It's kind of this kind of, not a pinhead, but a very small top part of the head here, and then he's kind of like the Thing or the Hulk, early Thing, early Hulk, 60s kind of short nose, long, sort of long kind of distance between the nose and upper lip, sort of classic Kirby monster proportions, and then kind of this big chin, and then I want the horns to fit on the page, and then the fire crown. Stylize that a little bit. So something like this. If you guys have seen me sketch before, I go kind of to ink pretty quick. Doing more pencil work on this just to make sure I've got the details right. And there we go. I think it's got pointy ears, yep. I think it starts around 6 or 7 o'clock or something like that. Alright. And this is a little bit darker than that other pencil I was using, so. I don't know if he's got eyebrows. Loud. So anyway, getting back to the Mignola story, but it was really interesting to see how he worked, where he basically would pencil out a page and then he would go to the Kinko's, because this is before camera phones and scanners were very expensive. I think he would go to Kinko's and then make photocopies of those pencil pages, and then he would take a Sharpie and he would fill in all the areas that he intended to be black. That because he would draw everything out, really kind of outlines, and he put X's where all the black shapes were supposed to, or the black shadows were supposed to be, or the inker was supposed to fill everything in black, or what he was going to fill in black. And then you could see the same page. He'd have a couple different photocopies of the same page with different sort of black, spotted blacks, shadow, light schemes, and it was just really fascinating to see his approach. And how powerful those black shapes could be, and the thought that went into it. I think the temptation, especially when you're just a kid looking at very simple black and white art like that, is that, oh, they just filled in this black area because it saved them time, or they were lazy or something. And it's furthest thing from the truth. I mean, it takes probably just as much skill, if not more skill, to be able to spot shadows effectively, to create depth and form and all that good stuff. Okay. Soft-spoken. He's a nurse in real life, but he's the PUBG virtual battlefield. I can go without drawing for months. I kind of go through periods actually now at this point in my career where I will take on an assignment and have an assignment that will go for several months, and then I take some downtime so I can just kind of focus on the day job, and kind of get my life back in order. When you're drawing, constantly in your free time, it takes its toll on family time and family life. So I just have to always strive to kind of find the right balance. And you can kind of see I'm using the pencil lines that I put down as a guide, but at the same time, kind of deviates from it a bit. Really kind of drawing with ink. That's kind of what differentiates a sketch from a sketch. I'm really kind of drawing with ink at the same time. I'm not erasing things. It's not designed to be printed or published, because there's a lot of things that don't make it camera ready, I guess. It's just a very kind of rough take on it. It's almost like a prelim in a way, like for a more finished, polished version. But at the same time, I mean, it's not like you can't enjoy it and appreciate it for what it is. But that's the difference to me between a sketch and a finished illustration. Okay, so even as I go through here in my mind, I know what areas I'm going to sort of fill in with black, and I kind of make mental notes of that. So it's a good thing as you guys work to kind of use your brain as sort of a post-it note of visual ideas. And let's see what we're going to do about this crown, fire crown here. I've seen it in the waves of the flame kind of thing. I'm going to try to do something a little different here. Like how everyone uses the metric system. That was a joke. Alright. Dad humor. Sunday morning dad humor. Alright. I'm dispensing of using the water bottle cap this time. I'm just pouring the ink directly onto the drawing. And I can do it with this paper because this is a different sketch paper. It's a little more porous, so it soaks up the ink and holds it on the paper longer in a very subtle way. So if I had slicker paper, the ink might start running down a little faster, making this a little more challenging. But because I know that this paper holds ink a little tighter than normal, has a little more of a rag consistency, it's a little rougher, I can just kind of dab the ink directly on the page, saving me the time and hassle of holding a thimble full of ink. Paper is this? Good question. I bought this paper 15 years ago, and I know that because I bought it in Europe when I was living in Italy for a year. Actually, and like I said, the finish is more of a vellum, kind of rougher. So in my head I knew that there were sort of shadows here. You know. And it's weird. Kind of good warm-up sketch. It's sort of just creating some texture effects here. Side of the brush, just kind of dry brush effects. I imagine this coat is like those Australian, what would they call? My brain is just not working this morning, but it's kind of like leather, but with a waxy sheen on it, I guess, to make it waterproof. And then some sort of core shadow. That kind of core shadow runs about 2/3 or 3/4, somewhere in the middle. So it's going to be anywhere from the halfway point to the 3/4 point. But it's basically the turning point from which light behind this object curves around this object to the point where it's in shadow, and then as it keeps going, light kind of finds its way back onto the object, if that makes any sense, right? So this is the furthest away from the light source behind it, so it's in shadow. This is the strong side, this is the weak side. So you get more of a rim light over here. And I'm kind of making this craggly line to kind of create the texture of the horns itself. Alright, and then there's a similar one right over here. I kind of do it sideways here because the paper's taped down. Okay. For, I think, 2 of the 3 days, and the idea was some sort of get together. So you guys, if you had stuff you wanted to get signed or something, take some selfies. It's in Anaheim in March, I believe. So go ahead and drop in a much deeper shadow here. Okay. And I'm letting the ink really kind of dictate the shape, even though in my head I have kind of a general idea of what I want it to be. All right. And then, let's see, let's go ahead and there was a Pittsburgh Comic Con, and I did go. I thought I went to that years ago. I have been to Pittsburgh. Hope's last witch. Oh no, he's going bold. Right, so you can. So in my so in my head, I see black here, white there, and so kind of black going here. The shadow kind of going diagonally on this sketch. All right. To sort of see how that light scheme would look and how much black I would put and where and da 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 da. So this collar is actually casting a shadow on the top part before the light kind of reacquires the bottom part. Since this is more porous paper, it's going to take a little more ink to kind of get the effects I want. But you can kind of see that the edges are a little kind of smoother and more. I just realized because the colors won't match. Alright, we'll try to use it to my advantage. Our advantage, we're all drawing together here. And let me see if I can. Well, I got some dry brush stuff going on. I can create a medium value here with this. Create a couple core shadows, little modeling. Right. Okay, so I've got these kind of gray shapes, and I'm going to render into them so they don't look like just random smudges. Gonna kind of try to organize the gray shapes a little bit. All right. So I'm reacting to the effect I created, which I can only kind of control in that when I lay it down, I'm not sure if it's going to give me exactly the shapes I want. But I didn't want to create that kind of core shadow in that part of the head. And I think I'm pretty much done with this except for the whiteout. You know, I can't. if it's the same number of people. So these lines create both texture and also create form, or reinforce form, because I'm basically, the lines are kind of curving with the curvature of the horns. And the idea is that helps reinforce the fact that they're three-dimensional and go around. And we'll probably do a meetup at San Diego as well. And MegaCon. I think I've announced it here first that I was actually going to be at MegaCon. I think they officially announced it just this week. I was at that show quite a while ago. All right, so I'm done with this. Got to move on to the next one here. So will Bruce Art as, I think, second position cheerer. Although there's some people that there's another way to cheer or donate, I guess. It's direct. It's that link that's on that first page. And every now and then I'll get notice that someone, and not even during a stream, I'll just, like, out of the blue, I'll see on my phone that I got a cheer, and I'll keep track of those as well. So if those people want to call out sketches, that would be fine by me as well. So I'm just kind of creating a gray middle value here, and I'm doing it with pencil. And these other kind of lines kind of make the skin a little craggly. And it's got an eye, but I kind of want to make it more subtle. That kind of pinpoint of the eye. All right. So that's that one. And I will be going out there to help them celebrate in the spring, I think. Okay, so that's Hellboy.